And we are live with another awesome episode of The Shut Up Show. I'm your host, Bernie Shung, and I'm so dang excited because I have another fellow misfit here on our show. And for those of you who are joining us new here in the community, I talked quite a bit about this past summer spending time in Fargo with a bunch of misfits. So you're going to see many of them coming here on the show in coming weeks. But I'm so excited. Not only is this person a misfit, she's also an amazing entrepreneur, a creative, an artist, a beautiful woman on the inside out. And I think what really connected us when we met in Fargo several months ago was the fact that we're moms and that we were young moms. And that doesn't happen often in my world. So I always get super excited and stoked when I can talk to a fellow mompreneur who's making some big shit happen. So anyway, our guest today, I'm so excited to have a conversation today with Laura Aiisha Haykel. Welcome, Laura.
Woo! Thank you so much. It is such an honor and a blessing to be here with you, Bernie. I'm super stoked.
Well, I am too. You were one of the handful of people who came up to me immediately after I cried on stage in Fargo. So, I mean, two things could have happened. One could have been like, oh my God, I'm mortified by this. I never want to see you again because I'm embarrassed. But then the other thing happened, the opposite happened, which was you came up to me and you told me that the story touched you because we lead very parallel lives, both in the past and in the present, in terms of where we came from and what we're doing in life. So it was a cathartic release for me for so many reasons because I personally had to go through that healing process of telling the truth. I didn't expect to do it in front of 150 people, but thank goodness I connected to someone like you who said, you know what, me too, Bernie.
Yeah.
So that's really why I wanted to have you on the show. I have a feeling that you're going to lend a great perspective about being a young mom, a creative, and an entrepreneur, and choosing yourself by getting up and standing up for who you are and what you believe in, and in the process helping others. So again, welcome to the show. I would love for you to start by telling us, I know it's going to be hard, but a Reader's Digest version of your story, maybe a pivotal point in your life where you kind of made that shift from the life you had before and to begin doing the work you're doing today, Laura.
Okay, so thank you so much, Bernie. Yeah, I remember that moment in Fargo where I was listening to you share on stage, and you and I both live very unconventional lives. We live lives by our own rules, and we were both young single mothers, and are still. I'm still a single mom. I'm not sure about you, but that has helped to shape my life and who I've become because of all of the things, all of the fires I've had to walk through, all of the triumphs and the challenges and everything else. It set me on a path, and I'm sure that you can relate to that. And there's nothing like being a young, hip mom, and there's nothing like being a young, hip mom. There are a lot of challenges, a lot of triumphs, a lot of opportunities, and so it's been a great journey. So thank you again for just sharing so transparently in Fargo about your journey. So yeah, my life took a huge turn when I was 16, and I dropped out of high school and I left home. I had just about had it with the way things were going, and I knew that I needed to leave. I knew that I left in search of my tribe and my community because I never felt like I belonged in my family, in my community, and I'm a twin, so that's it's interesting as well because I have like a partner that I was in the womb with, but I always felt really alone, and I always kind of felt like I didn't belong. So I left home at 16. I got into a whole heap of trouble. It saved my life. I was pregnant at 19. I was a single mom by the age of 23. I quit my last job at the age of 24, almost 25. Started working with this reggae festival guide magazine, had a dream of in becoming involved in the entertainment and music industry, moved to New York City for almost 3 years and built up a pretty significant resume in that time. I also fell in love with a man and had my heart shattered to pieces, mostly because I was not listening to the guidance that I was receiving about how to navigate this relationship, and I could not let go. because I was so afraid of letting go. And so, because I could not let go, the relationship ended in such a way that there was no way that I could, in my greatest conscience, return. So, I scraped myself up off the floor, packed a minivan, and drove home. And so I was away from my daughter for almost 3 years on the day-to-day. We were, of course, in touch, and I would visit her monthly, and she would come to the city, but it wasn't day-to-day parenting. And for that, I grieved a lot once I returned home and realized the time that I had lost with her. I was also coming home to a custody battle as well, even though the terms were very clear when I was leaving about, why I was leaving, and everyone was very clear, and so that was really intense, and I was in my late 20s at that time. So that particular experience caused me to say to myself, Laura Haykel, you are never going to do this to yourself again. You have got to learn how to love yourself fully and wholly. All of you. The imperfections, the dreams, the goals, the challenges, everything. And so that was the start of what I call my next level healing journey. And that happened just around 29, 30. And so now I'm 8 years in to that journey, and it has been quite a ride. My life today is so much more fulfilling and filled with magic and filled with miracles and synchronicity and blessings, and also great challenges. Like, I am challenged on the daily, okay? Like, people see me and they're like, what do you do? You're always so up and positive, and how do you maintain this level of energy? And first of all, I'm not always up and positive. However, that is the foundation for my energy and my beingness. I've had some extremely challenging weeks, days, weeks, months this year, and it is just through a consistent practice of acknowledging the blessings, anchoring into gratitude, anchoring into trust and faith, and stepping forward, like, regardless of how much fear is present. That's what keeps me going, as well as an incredibly amazing community of people like you, Bernie, who are just like out there doing your thing, saying yes to your dreams, living your dreams in the here and now. And so that was really that pivotal moment that caused me to say, okay, you need to learn how to love yourself. You need to learn how to fill that void and that deep black hole that's at the center of your soul. So trust your knowing and listen to those messages that you are receiving all the time. And then also part of that was hiring a life coach. And I worked with this incredible life coach, Julie Kramer, for on and off for 4 years. And that helped shift so much and just open me up so much to my truth and who I truly be underneath all that other stuff I picked up along the way.
I love it. And you're like, that's it. That's all. That's my story at the end. It was so easy, wasn't it, Laura? No, but out of all seriousness, though, I didn't hear this whole story before, so I couldn't have guessed that we'd have that much in common, even though I knew we did. But even your timelines, like the milestones, right, the positive and negative milestones, are so similar to mine. I mean, I got married at 16, so I left home too. I had my kid at 17, similar to you at 19, and I always felt like I didn't belong either. And I didn't have a bad home that I grew up in. I just didn't feel right. I was always in search of wanting to grow up and get out into the world and see how I could make a contribution in it. Even if it wasn't that whole like philanthropic kind of contribution, but it was definitely I need to get out into the world and see where I fit in. And it's so funny because I think we're like close to the same age. I'm 37.
Yeah, same.
Right. And I'm just like, this girl is like reciting back my story, my life in front of me. That's crazy. There's so much goodness packed in there, Laura, but what really resonates with me and the work that I've seen you do since I've met you in Fargo I've seen you do so much, and I don't want us to overuse the word empowering, but I think it's going to be important because I think your definition of empowerment is probably very different than the buzzword that's being thrown around right now in the self-help industry. But the way you inspire, empower, and even, I guess, motivate people, I feel like you've touched on a lot of different aspects of how you touch a person. For example, I mean,
Mhm.
I do coaching and consulting, so chances are we tend to talk more about like mindset strategies and then practical solutions to take action. But for you, we're talking even now, in addition to that, we're talking about music, we're talking about art creation, we're talking about expressing
Mhm.
yourself in ways that maybe it's not verbal. I mean, we're talking about like public speaking, we're talking about dance. I mean, we're talking about speaking your truth. I mean, there are so many different ways I feel that you tackle this whole topic of helping a person, fall back in love with their divine self. What's your take on that? I mean, what's your take on, you talked about how you had a life coach that helped you through some of these difficult times, and now I feel like you've moved into a similar role, but I can't even call you life
Mhm.
coach because I think you have your own name, just like I have my own name as well. But what's your take on where we, people like us, are going with empowering, inspiring, and motivating people? What's different now about the way we're helping these people to transform themselves?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Bernie. I feel like my one of my like greatest purposes in this life is to empower, inspire, motivate, and uplift other people. And I largely do that through the way that I choose to live my own life. So while I don't always practice everything that I preach every day, every moment, I am practicing what I preach on a consistent basis. And so if anybody wants to know how I navigate through like I mean, I tend to kind of invite several large life experiences at one time. Like I'm kind of always like balance, you know, juggling several balls at the same time. So, for me, empowerment has been number one, getting out of my own way, having a beginner's mind. And when my life coach started presenting these ideas and perspectives and shining a light on these stories that I was living my life by that were absolutely no longer serving me. They may have served me in the past in some way, but now as the adult goddess empress Laura that I be, these stories were like the 10-year-old stories, and I needed to get my stories up to the 30 something Laura stories, that truly are going to get up underneath me and be the foundation for me living my greatest life and being my greatest self. So so for me, empowerment is about like choosing, what being conscious of what are you choosing, on the day to day, and also learning how to have loving compassion and forgiveness for myself when I falter, when I feel like when the perfectionist in me is kind of getting triggered and saying, oh, you're not living up to, that perfect Laura that you have in your mind. And just being the witness of my life. And by being the witness of my life and being transparent and being vulnerable and sharing my truth with the world, as well as like the inspiration that's just coming through me, I feel like that is my empowerment. That's how I embody empowerment. And then by me embodying it and being it and living it on the day to day, it's empowering other people. Like it's like people are starting to have like these awakenings, or I'll just post something that's coming through me on Facebook, and people say, I always check your Facebook page because you always have these positive perspective, like I flip the script, um and I realize I think about life now in, I feel like it's a very different way than kind of the norm, because people are always looking at me like, okay, well, I mean, whatever works, whatever you say. And I just say, you know what? I believe peace is possible in our lifetime. I believe there is more than enough to go around and around and around. I believe that we all have the ability to come into some level of peace and congruency and alignment. And, I believe that we hold the power. We hold the power. Most of us hold the power to really, truly create our greatest lives based on what we're choosing in the moment to moment. So I also believe that, like, okay, so maybe the 20th of the month rolls around and I've got $1,000 that's come in income. And this is an experience I had several years ago, but it was like 20th of the month, $1,000 came in, and I'm thinking, holy shit, how am I going to make this happen? Like, where is the money going to come from? And I started telling myself the new story of, I am enough, I have enough, there is enough. I always have more than enough to spare and share. So whenever I would get triggered around money, and still when I get triggered around money, that's the story I tell myself. And I shit you not, every time there's more than enough. So, and people are like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, just by thinking it, by being, and it's like, yeah, think it, embody it, be it, and then you start attracting the magic and the miracles. You're open to receiving it. So that's a long-winded response to your question.
Yeah, but it totally makes sense, and this has come up in conversation quite a bit that I've had with some of my friends too, and we talk about the law of attraction or whatever people want to call it or refer to it as, but it's that whole, like, you can't just think it, you actually, like you said, you actually have to do, you have to be, and I think that's the difference, because you're not just wishing, you're not just thinking and sitting on your ass eating bonbons. I mean, you're out there, like, putting yourself out there, expressing yourself creatively through different art forms and making things happen. And so, though it feels like this magic out of thin air overnight success, when things do go right, you actually have to give yourself credit, because you are putting your art out there to be sold, right? And to be consumed and to be admired and adored by other people. And so I think that's the part that people tend to forget to talk about is, oh, I actually have to get off my ass and do something, don't I?
Well, yeah, and like, let me tell you, it has been so uncomfortable for me showing up in this way, like putting myself out there in this totally new way after working behind the scenes in business and consulting for many years. As a single mom, I've been supporting my daughter and myself as either a freelancer or an independent consultant entrepreneur for the last 12 plus years. So, so now putting myself out there, and I'm on the stage now. I'm the one putting my music, basically my heart and soul, out there in the world. It has been so amazing and so uncomfortable. Like, I have had to be like consistently just like breathe, and I do like the EFT tapping, and I do some different things to help process that energy, and a lot of breathing, like, oh shit, I am really feeling exposed and vulnerable right now.
Right.
And like coming to terms with the part of me that wants everyone to like me. Like, I want everyone to like me, and that's been a thorn in my side my whole life, and realizing that, like, not everyone's gonna like me. Not everyone's gonna like me. Some people are gonna be jerks and post something whack on a blog or whatever, and that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone's gonna like me, and I sure do know that quite a few people love me. So, like, and so, it's like I can deal with some people not liking me these days. It's not easy for me. I have to do some processing around it sometimes. Sometimes I read something and tears come to my eyes, and I just breathe it out, let it clear, and then I just remember that I'm love, and that, holy shit, I am choosing to share my deepest truth and my light and my creativity with the world. So, that's how I deal with that one. But yeah, it's
that is such a perfect segue, because you didn't know what I was going to ask you next. I've been thinking about this, but this is the perfect time for it. You just recently posted on your Facebook. There was a beautiful picture of you that you took at the photo booth that we did in Fargo for the Misfit Conference. And I love that photo of you. You were like sassy and like, I mean, you look like a total artist. Like you look like a music artist slash like star, you know? And you said that you felt uncomfortable even with that picture and being complimented on how great it looks because you didn't say why, but you know, my guess was very similar to the reasons why I think I've always objected to being put out on in the spotlight too is, oh my God, did they see my big nose? Did they see that my hair's out of place? You know, did they see that my makeup wasn't, you know, or my little belly pooch, right? And like I used to think of those things all the time, and every time I'd call it out and bring it up to people, they're like, I didn't even see that, Bernie. Like you look great. But then it also reminds me of something else I read too when I was stalking you online before this episode. You talked about how you did not come out and sing publicly until you were 30, which boggles my mind because you're like making all these albums right now. So anyway, I'm tying the pieces together now, Laura. I think I get it now. I think I understand what you're saying. So the big question I have for you is, how the hell does one break through that? How the hell does one break through the I'm behind the scenes and I'm not sure if I'm worthy of getting out there to all of a sudden making it happen, being the one on stage, being the one spotlighted, being the one being interviewed on a podcast like this, and as uncomfortable as it is, how do you, and I know you probably have daily mantras and all these strategies you use, but how do you get through that? How do you convince yourself, I'm going to move, take action, and own that space?
Well, part of it is so I'm a very like kinesthetic person. I feel a lot in my body, and I'm intuitive, so I hear messages, I receive messages, and you know I've got like this. I didn't know it, but my life coach helped me to realize that I have this really strong sense of knowing within me. And I don't know used to be my go-to. It was always, I don't know, how are you feeling? I don't know, what's this? I don't know, you know. And so I realized that that was a go-to, that was an escape and a distraction from trusting and acknowledging my knowing. I think that, well, one big thing for me is that I made it through some really, really crazy, crazy stuff as a teenager. And so I always knew that my life was saved, it was protected, so that I could be the fullest expression of my contribution in the world and to have a tremendous impact on the collective uplift and the healing of the nation. So that's clarity that's come to me over the last like 8 to 10 years or so. But it was making it through all of that crazy stuff, and then just the intensity and the chaos of being a young single mother and a high school dropout and piecemealing a 2-year college degree together, and getting through all this crazy stuff that I was choosing in my early 20s. And then it was like, I just kept showing up. I just kept showing up and saying, you have a purpose in this world, and you may not know what it is, and you might not be clear on what it is, and life might be hard, and you may feel like the ups and downs of life really, really intensely. But like, keep going. There was just like something in my soul and my being that has just said, just keep going, Laura, you know. And I have wanted to give up so many times. I have wanted to just throw in the towel and say, fuck it all. And there's just something that I've developed, some strength of spirit that is just like within my being that doesn't allow me to give up. I might give up for like a second or a minute or an hour or half a day, but like after that, I just remember how truly blessed I am, and that, you know, just like there are so many people in the world doing incredibly amazing things, and you know, so many artists and creators and entrepreneurs and healers and you know, all of these amazing people, and I mean street people and the corner store folks and the skateboarders and the, you know what I mean, like there's so many people doing amazing things in the world. And so what I choose to acknowledge is that I have a purpose just like everyone else. I have something really unique and special that is coming through me, and um, it's like my role. It's my like I have to share this with the world, you know, because I've been blessed. I feel like I've been blessed in the most amazing ways. So so yeah, I feel like it started with the acknowledgement of like, wow, I'm lucky to be alive. So there must be some big purpose for me in this world. And then moving that forward into the real deep healing process, um, and just having just choosing to really have trust and faith with this inner knowing, even though the inner knowing doesn't always match up with what's happening on the outside. I'm choosing more and more to trust the inner knowing as opposed to trusting the illusions that I experience out in the world, you know. So that's like one big thing, trusting my inner knowing. At first, just like acknowledging that I know that there is
Mhm.
something within me that knows, and I'm going to acknowledge and trust that. And then all of the different tools that I've picked up, like you said, mantras is a huge thing for me. So I'm a singer. You know, I have these little mantras that come through, and one of them is a song that I have on my EP that I just released in June, and it's a song called Get Up, and it goes, get up right now, get
Get
out
out
of
of
the
your
way.
way. I heard
The
it.
world is calling you to leave your greatest legacy.
Legacy.
You know, so like reminding
Yeah.
myself, you know, and so I, as these words go through my mind and then it fills my body, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, all right, like get out of your way, Laura, let this happen, allow this to happen, you know.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it was like I listened to it once the other week and then I keep like singing it to myself like I'm doing the dishes and stuff and I'm like, oh my God, Laura, get out of my head, you know? But it was
No.
catchy. It was catchy. It was catchy because it makes sense. Like, you know, it
Yeah,
like literally makes sense in my life and the people I want to help too. So I'm so glad you brought that up because I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
yeah,
But
so well,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yes. Well, so the mantra thing is really powerful. And I encourage anyone, I mean, anyone can create a mantra and put a melody to it. You know what I mean? It's like, or just create a mantra that feels powerful to you, and start to tell yourself a new story. So that was a huge part of it as well. I started to tell myself new stories, and really be the witness to my life and to my thoughts and to the words I was using.
Hmm.
And I started to just choose new things like in all areas of my life. And while there are those temptations to go down the rabbit hole and to get sucked into depression and to, you know, just like get sucked into maybe people who aren't the best for me or have my best interests at heart, you know, just like being the warrioress and saying like this for me, this is life or death, you know. And I'm here to live as fully as I possibly can until I transition into the next phase, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a lot about choice and about just recognizing the gift that you be in the world. And no matter how many other amazing people you see out there, like you are a gift. Everyone is a gift to this world, and we all play a purpose and we all play our role. So like, what's my role? What's your role? And let's keep playing that powerfully, you know?
Right, right. And I love it. And it's so evident in the work that you do, you know, both from the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you sing, the way you create art in so many different ways. And I, you know, haven't experienced your coaching yet, but I would imagine that the coaching is very much like that too.
Yeah.
I would hate to call it, you know, she's just another life coach, which believe me, a lot of people have the tendency to say that about life coaches. But I think for you, you are a coach, but you coach in a very unique way that only Laura Haykel can coach. And I coach in the way only Bernie Shung can coach. And I think to put us in the same exact category and say our coaching's identical would be wrong, because I think what you're basically saying is we're all brought here for a purpose and for a reason. And our reasons will vary So though you and I are connected, through spiritually and in the heart and the mind, I believe there are so many unique things about us that people will be attracted to us because of specifically what we can offer them, right? So
That's
it's not like we're competing, right, in the space. We are contributing to providing more abundance in the space, and there's
that's right.
so much room for so many divine people, like us. And so yeah, I seriously love your story, and I know I could talk to you forever, but I know we are kind of a little bit over time. But if you have a couple more minutes, I really, really want to ask you one more question before we
Yeah,
close up and have you pimp yourself out to everybody. Cool?
yeah, cool.
Okay, awesome. So, by the way, the bandwidth was kind of a little messed up, so I did remove my video. But don't worry, we want you to see Laura's face, not mine. You guys see me every week, so you know what my mug looks like. Anyways, so the most important thing I think for the viewers and listeners here in the Shut Up Show community and fellow Brave Bears of mine is we have the tendency to know that we do have a purpose here in this world, and we are dedicated to this life and work that we do. We don't feel like it's a job, right? The majority of us tend to show up and just love what we do because we just can't not do it. However, like you alluded to earlier, it's hard some days. Some days, and this was me just a couple of days ago. Some days I'm like, can I just be normal? Like, I don't want to have to worry about my newsletter and podcasts and all. Can I just go and be normal, have a normal job, And then, like you said, but
Yeah.
you close the gap, right, on how long you stay stuck in that story because all of a sudden the voice in my head immediately went, "Shut up, Bernie." Like that's not you. That's not going to be you. Enough is enough. Quit asking that question. Get back
Hmm.
to work. So those days are going to happen. So when those days happen, obviously we get paralyzed with fear. And so I would imagine you're not absent of fear. I imagine that you have a lot of fear still. So my big magic question for you right now is what are you afraid of right now as we sit here on the show and you have a lot of amazing things coming up for you, Laura? What are you afraid of?
Well, that's a great question, and I just want to say yes, there's a lot of fear. I face fear every day, and I just choose to move forward regardless. I choose to move forward, especially in the face of fear. So fear is not a bad thing. It gives us information. It's an entry point. It's access to something so much greater than we could ever even imagine. So I have transformed my relationship to fear on many levels, which does not mean that I don't get totally scared like crazy sometimes. And if there's the thing that came up for me right before our interview, just thinking about fear and what it is that I fear. Uh, One of my greatest fears is that I will not live up to my greatest potentials in this life.
Wow. That's huge, considering how much you just talked about, how much you are doing, and how much you are contributing. Obviously, with that fear, I mean, that must really be lighting a fire underneath your ass, right?
It is.
So, so how do you, I mean, and if you feel the need to repeat some of the things that you used before, how are you navigating through that with some strategies or tactics? If somebody here who's going through something similar as you, what can they take away from the conversation today and say, okay, this is what Laura said she does, and I'm going to try to see if this works for me?
Hmm. Well, there are a bunch of things that you can do. A couple of things that just came to me are number one, acknowledge it. Like acknowledge that it's there, acknowledge that it's in your body, in your mind. Um, Let it know that you see it, that you feel it, and do your best to not try to make it better. Because I found that by my like me trying to avoid discomfort in my life, it just either the discomfort persists or I keep creating uncomfortable situations. So one of the biggest things that I've been learning on this journey is like how to allow discomfort. And it is like the most freaking uncomfortable thing in the world. And
Right.
it's necessary. I'm still not comfortable with discomfort. A few weeks ago, I had this really, really tough week. And there were things going on personally. There were things going on with my business. There was a lot of my own personal judgments of myself being flown around. It's like flinging out these judgments about myself. And so just allowing myself to just say, I'm uncomfortable. This is what's real for me. I'm judging myself, and giving it space to just be there. I find that in and of itself will allow things to start moving, and it'll allow the energy to shift, and it allows you to open up, and then before you know it, it could be a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a week, a few weeks, but just like allowing yourself to be in that place without getting stuck there, because we can sometimes tend to have we could kind of tend to get stuck there sometimes if we're not like super conscious about it. But just like giving myself time to feel uncomfortable. And then you know what happened? The next Monday, I woke up and I felt just like this rush of motivation again. But it was a full week of feeling really like super uncomfortable. So like that's going to happen. And part of it is just, like acknowledging the discomfort and allowing it to be there.
That's interesting. It's almost as if you're like creating space for this discomfort or even for like a week to be off, right? It's almost as if you're scheduling it now, right? I mean, I'm sure you're not inviting it, but once it's there, you're like, all right, that's it. Fine. Let's be out for a week. Let's work through this, and then next week I'm back, right? I mean,
Yeah,
do you feel like that's right? Okay. And that's really interesting to me, because I find that many people who've been on the show, by the way, which I've talked to, about 100 entrepreneurs in the past 18 months, many of them say that that's what they do. They talk about, and they use different words for it, but it's basically stop trying to run away from it. Let's take a look at it. Let's examine it. Let's break it down. Some of the engineers are like, let's even break it down and see what we can assess from this, see what we can learn from it. And in fact, some people run towards it because they know that once they pass through it, then they're done being scared, or they've fixed whatever the problem is, or there was a lesson that they quickly learned from it, and then they were able to bounce back quickly.
Exactly.
Right. So it sounds like you're strengthening your inner knowingness muscle, if you will, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm always talking about like building up. We have to build up these muscles. It's like, if you've never done yoga before and you go into a yoga class, unless you're like super flexible and whatever, you have to like build up your ability to like stretch and hold these poses, and like, yoga is not for the faint of heart. So it's the same thing with our spiritual soul journey. It's like we've got to build up these muscles and just recommit every day, and just keep saying yes to the bounty and the beauty and the magic and the miracles that life is just aching to give us, as we choose to open up and receive. So it's a journey, girl. It's a process.
Yeah. I love it, and I love you to death. Seriously, get up and get out of your way, people. That's what Laura Haykel says, so do it. So as we close out the show here, one of the most important parts is, I want to make sure that the people I bring on get to talk about the things they're working on and where our viewers and listeners can find them, because I know that just this, less than an hour we have together, I know it gave so many golden nuggets to our listeners, but I'm sure they probably want more from you. So feel free to use the next, minute or so and tell us what you're working on, what's coming up, and then specifically where they can go to find your work.
Great. So I just released my debut EP. It's 5 original songs, and there's a bonus track on there. But they're all original songs, and it is like music that came through me, through my soul, to you. So it's really awesome. It's positive. It's uplifting. It's deep. And you can check that out at lauraaiisha.com. And Aiisha is spelled Aiisha. So lauraaiisha.com. And you can also check out lauraaiisha.bandcamp.com. lauraaisha.com. You can buy the digital release there. And my blog and like pretty much everything that I'm up to is at lauraaisha.com. And I'm also at Laura Aiisha on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me through Laura Aiisha or La Musique. And yeah, I got some irons in the fire, girl. So stay tuned. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. But the big project for me right now is my debut EP. And by the time this goes live out in the world, my first music video will be out. So check
Oh my
it out.
gosh. Awesome. I did not know that.
So that's really exciting. And then I'll be releasing another really cool video that has to do with my live music that you can check out as well. So stay tuned. There's some really cool stuff going on. And if you want a free download of my song Get Up, you can get that at lauraaisha.com/La Musique. So check that out, and if you can also check it out at lauraaisha.com/get-up. So check it. You'll just enter your name and email, and then you'll receive a link to download my song Get Up for free. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. You seriously rock, girl. I mean, from high school dropout, teenager, misfit teenager to mommypreneur, singer, songwriter, artist, creative entrepreneur, coach, divinely beautiful goddess woman that I'm so proud to know. I couldn't be more thankful for you to be here, and even more so for all the amazing work that you do in this world, girl. I know this is only the beginning. So who says an overnight success,
Girl, you and I know there is no overnight success. It is,
Exactly.
we're
I
on a
was
journey
like,
here.
it took you and I 8 years to find each other from when we first started doing the work we do, and I think it's absolutely amazing that we were on like these parallel journeys, and now our paths have finally converged. So I am so damn excited for everything you're doing. So I'll make sure to include all those links again in the show notes when we do publish this live. But otherwise, in the meantime, guys, go check out Laura Aiisha, AIISHA.com. She's awesome. So thank you, sweetheart. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I can't wait to catch up and find out more about all the other things you're going to be doing, I know you're going to be huge. So,
Well, and
thank you.
Bernie, I just want to say, first of all, I see you. You have this really gorgeous, sensual, deep, creative power that is just like channeling through your being. You are a light and a gift in this world, and I want to just big up AJ and Melissa Leon, Misfit Inc., and the Misfit Conference that brought across, allowed our paths to cross, and also Jay Allen Photography, who took that super awesome picture that I had some discomfort about, but everyone seems to love it, so I'm keeping it up there and learning to love myself through it. But Bernie, big up yourself. You are such a goddess, such a queen, and keep shining your light, girl. I'm so thankful and blessed that we're aligned in this life. So yeah, give thanks for having me.
Thank you, sweetheart. And good thing my video is off because you'll see the tears coming down my eyes right now. I am so touched and I'm so blessed. And seriously, I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect timing for us to meet. And I know this is only the beginning of our budding friendship, but yeah, there's more to come from both of us.
More to come, for sure.
All right, shut up, community. We gotta go. We've kept this girl long, but she's definitely a gift for us today. But remember, you guys, if there's anything I want you guys to take away this week from this episode with Laura, it's to get up and get out of your way and go and make some shit happen the best way that you can. How great or small, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Choose yourself. We love you. Love yourself first, and I think that's absolutely the most important thing I want you to take away from today's conversation with Laura. So again, talk to you guys later. Thank you again for another amazing episode, Laura, and we'll be seeing you soon, my dear.
Peace.
Peace.
Yes.